Don't think he don't know. You pay those lawyers to know. Those lawyers know what he's going to beat, and those lawyers know what he ain't going to beat.
Now, if the government is going to mandate that they are responsible for your well-being, they have to ensure the safety of your well-being.
The headlines have been explosive lately.
And one name keeps popping up: Cuba Gooding Jr. You won't believe what he's caught up in now. After Diddy's shocking arrest, everything changed in the blink of an eye. Accomplices scattered like roaches when the lights came on, and the whole situation spiraled into chaos. But the most jaw-dropping twist? Cuba Gooding Jr. is now deeply involved in the scandal, and it's looking messier by the day.
It was a lawsuit by a woman who accused him of a decade ago. Trial was about to start with jury selection in New York federal court.
You see, when
Diddy was taken into custody, the aftermath was like something out of a movie. It wasn't just a matter of him going quietly. Nope, his whole entourage, everyone who was ever in his orbit, seemed to panic. And one of those people, according to the latest rumors, was Cuba Gooding Jr. As soon as the cuffs were slapped on Diddy, Cuba reportedly went into full-blown crisis mode. He's been lying low, possibly even on the run, consulting with his lawyers around the clock. Word on the street is that he's already working out a deal with the FBI. That's right, it looks like he's about to turn on Diddy. It's wild to think about, but apparently Cuba is so desperate to clear his own name that he's willing to rat out Diddy and all their shared accomplices.
Quite a few years ago now, probably 10 or 11 years ago.
The Butler.
Yeah, and it was a great film, and I loved the interview, and you were with Oprah and all these others that were...
So how did Cuba Gooding Jr. end up in this mess? Well, let's not forget that Cuba isn't exactly a stranger to controversy. He's had his fair share of legal battles over the years, and some of those cases are seriously sketchy. His connections to Diddy's infamous parties are starting to resurface, and it's not looking good for him. For those who aren't familiar, Diddy's parties were legendary, but for all the wrong reasons. Some of the things that went down at those gatherings have only recently come to light, and they paint a disturbing picture. And now there's growing evidence that Cuba was involved in some of the worst of it.
And in this lawsuit, he claims that essentially P. Diddy was the Epstein of the rap.
Let's take a closer look at Cuba's history. His legal troubles began long before this current scandal with Diddy. He's been in and out of the courtroom, facing various accusations that have tarnished his image. He's tried to maintain his innocence, of course, but the details of some of his cases raise serious questions. Remember the groping allegations from a few years back? Multiple women came forward accusing Cuba of inappropriate behavior in public spaces. These incidents reportedly happened in crowded bars, where Cuba's behavior was described as aggressive and disrespectful. He's been accused of crossing lines, and despite his denials, the cases just kept piling up.
Settlement with a woman who sued him for $6 million on the accusation that he raped her a decade ago. The decision came.
Here's where things get even juicier. Cuba's connections to Diddy's parties weren't just casual hangouts. Rumor has it he was a regular fixture at these events, and he saw and possibly even participated in some pretty wild stuff. Now, as more details emerge about what actually happened at these gatherings, Cuba's presence there is raising eyebrows. It seems like every day, new information comes out about what went down behind closed doors, and Cuba's name keeps popping up.
I mean, that's crazy. That's the craziest thing I'd ever. And then, hey, how about me? I wake up in the morning, I turn on the stage show, and actor Cuba Gooding Jr. I was like, excuse me!
It's no wonder that Cuba is now scrambling to distance himself from Diddy and everything that's come out about these parties. In interviews, he's tried to laugh off his involvement, claiming he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's even tried to suggest that his presence at Diddy's events was purely coincidental, and that he didn't know what was happening around him. But let's be real, no one's buying it, especially not now with so much damning evidence starting to surface. Cuba has always been known for being a smooth talker, but even his charm can't save him from this mess.
I'm not here to shame anybody or to take any of these women who, made their statements.
In fact, there are whispers that Cuba is working behind the scenes to cut a deal. Word is, he's been in touch with his legal team, trying to figure out how to save himself from going down with the ship. And here's the kicker: some sources are saying that he's ready to snitch. That's right, Cuba might actually be willing to testify against Diddy and their other associates to save his own skin. It's not uncommon in cases like this for people to turn on each other, especially when the stakes are this high. And it sounds like Cuba is doing everything in his power to avoid getting caught up in the inevitable fallout.
That the raid and all of that stuff, only time will tell. Who was involved, who had been a frequent guest in these places and areas.
Rumors are swirling, and they're getting wilder by the day. Some insiders claim that Cuba is already in talks with the FBI, offering up information about Diddy and others who were involved in these infamous parties. Apparently, he's hoping that by cooperating with the authorities, he can cut a deal and avoid the worst possible consequences. But here's the thing, even if Cuba manages to strike a deal, it's unlikely that he'll walk away from this completely unscathed. His reputation has taken a massive hit, and his connections to Diddy's crimes are too deep to be ignored.
It wasn't that my behavior was focused towards women. I was carefree in front of groups and crowds of people.
What's even more shocking is how far Cuba is reportedly willing to go to save himself. Some say he's ready to expose everything not just about Diddy, but about all the people who attended these events and what really happened behind those closed doors. He's apparently prepared to hand over evidence, point fingers, and throw just about everyone under the bus if it means keeping himself out of prison. It's hard to imagine Cuba going from an A-list actor to a government informant, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and it seems like Cuba is in full-on survival mode.
I've had clients describe NBC as hell, as the worst conditions they've been in.
Meanwhile, Diddy is dealing with a whole lot of problems of his own. His arrest has thrown his entire empire into disarray. Lawsuits are piling up faster than ever, and the most recent one is nothing short of staggering. Diddy is facing a lawsuit demanding $100 million in damages, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are other cases too, including allegations of misconduct that span years, maybe even decades. It's clear that Diddy's golden era is over, and there's no coming back from this. What's especially interesting is how Diddy has managed to keep himself above the law for so long. For years, he's been one of the most powerful figures in the music industry, and he's used that power to shield himself from serious consequences. But now, with all these allegations coming to light, it looks like his luck has finally run out. His influence is fading, his legal troubles are mounting, and his once loyal circle of friends and associates is quickly turning against him.
I think industry talk, there's a lot of people who have worked for him. There's been stories around, which is, not necessarily unusual.
As for Cuba, his future is just as uncertain. If he's truly ready to snitch on Diddy, it's only a matter of time before the whole house of cards comes crashing down. But even if he cooperates with the authorities, there's no guarantee that he'll escape unscathed. His reputation is in shambles, and the public isn't likely to forget his involvement in this scandal anytime soon. The world is watching, and it's clear that the fallout from Diddy's arrest is far from over. The drama is only just beginning, and as more details emerge, it's anyone's guess how this will all play out. What we do know is that Cuba Gooding Jr. and Diddy are both in very deep water, and it looks like they're both fighting to stay afloat. One thing's for sure, this scandal is far from over, and it's only going to get messier from here. Now, let's get into the real heart of this story, Diddy's infamous parties. If you thought the drama with Cuba Gooding Jr. was intense, buckle up, because the deeper you dive into what was really happening at Diddy's events, the more shocking it gets. These weren't just your average Hollywood parties filled with music and dancing. No, these were secretive, over-the-top gatherings where almost anything could and did happen. The kind of parties where rules didn't exist, and celebrities who were in the know kept their lips sealed until now.
Walks away clean from this, that everything is dropped and he faces no charges or any prison time?
Not impossible. I mean, anything is possible, but I don't see that happening. I see him kind of going the path of R. Kelly, where again, for so many decades, he was able to act with impunity and just, with harming so many, young women.
Over the years, whispers about Diddy's wild side were common. People in the industry talked, but they did it behind closed doors, knowing full well that getting on Diddy's bad side could be career-ending. For years, he seemed untouchable, floating above any real scrutiny. But as details about what actually happened at these gatherings come to light, it's clear that this was more than just harmless fun.
I mean, to me, this sounds like a very toxic work environment. What is your take on that?
Toxic, but just, I mean, this is illegal behavior. You cannot put hands, this is battery, it's criminal battery.
The story is far from over, and the next few months will be crucial in determining how this all plays out. Will more celebrities step forward to distance themselves from Diddy's crumbling empire? Or will the truth about what happened at those infamous parties finally be revealed in court? One thing's for sure, the drama is only just beginning, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But what do you think? Will this fall from grace lead to even more shocking revelations about Hollywood's elite, or will his powerful connections somehow pull him out of this mess once again? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more updates on this developing story.